and hallucinations, everybody. Jonathan coming to you live from the Costa Rica side of this beautiful planet floating through outer space. Look at this beauty right now behind me. This is from my home here in Costa Rica, where I am currently residing, and wanted to share a little insight with you all, a little download, a little upload, a little sad load, just bring in the good vibes, the good frequency to wherever you may be residing on this planet. And yeah, I just wanted to share some insights with you all. Hope you're doing well. As many of you know, for the last few years, I've been on a world tour that I call the Activate Tour, and right now I am here in Costa Rica for the third time this year. It just keeps calling me back, and I love it here so much. I mean, just the surf, the vibe, the nature. I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate and adore this place. Let me just show you this deep nature that I'm residing in right now. It's just so good. And not to mention the surf has been firing this week. Oh my god. And I don't know, I've been really having revelations around the topic actually of this video, which is all about experiencing more pleasure in our life, more pleasure in everything that we're creating and doing. Because I mean, what are we here in this world to do anyways? We are here to experience the beauty and the wholeness, the fullness, and the infinite creative opportunities that are always waiting for us to bring forth. Because we are essentially the creator. The creator is experiencing life through us, as us, with us in every moment. And so we have the opportunity to be able to embody that. And the more that we practice that, the more that we can experience the abundance of creation. But a lot of times, we get caught into our old way of perceiving life, and sometimes we're projecting our unconscious desires into the world, and then that propels us on, sometimes a not so exciting path when we fall unconscious, when we fall asleep. And so essentially this video today that I'm going to be sharing, this transmission, is all about how to expand what you are creating in your consciousness kitchen. What are you brewing in the cauldron of consciousness, and how can we begin to experience more pleasure? And this idea of experiencing or expanding our capacity to experience pleasure. Let me tell you, my friends, it is a muscle that wants to be exercised. And it takes two to tango, you and yourself, you and your higher self, you and your lower self. Sometimes, all of those disintegrated aspects of who we are. And what I mean by that is that when we go unconscious, there are parts of our mind that are actually entangled to the past, based on maybe something that had happened in the past that shapes you as your identity. It shapes your ego. It shapes your perspective of you on the world, and it actually shapes the way that you project who you are into the world. Now, in the beginning, you might be like, yeah, I get it. I got an ego, sure, whatever. But you guys, it's so important to be deepening our understanding of how connected we are to our ego. And what I mean by that is to have a deep understanding and discernment of knowing when you're awake and when you're asleep, when you're conscious and when you're unconscious, and just knowing the difference between the two. And that's not exactly what this video is about, but I will tell you that in my past, when I was really unconscious, when I was deeply unconscious, I say sometimes that I was in a deep state of unconscious Christianity, and I was in a lot of deep unconscious pain and depression from childhood trauma, right? The story, right? And so I had to work through that, but the first step was to just become aware that I had an unconscious identity based on my past, and I was unconsciously addicted to it. I felt like shit. I felt depressed. I was eating shitty food. I was not happy, and I was essentially seeking pleasure in ways that were unhealthy, that were unconscious. Freud talks about this idea. He calls it the pleasure principle. And let me just actually pull this up here because I thought it was fascinating. I was going to make this video, and I was like, I know there's something about avoiding pleasure and seeking pain. Tony Robbins talks about it. And here it is, Freudian psychoanalysis. The pleasure principle is the instinctive seeking of pleasure and avoiding of pain to satisfy, get this, biological and psychological needs. Specifically, the pleasure principle is the driving force behind the id. And if you're not familiar with the id is Freudian's description of the ego, which is, he breaks it into three parts. The id is basically the subconscious or the physical, more of the physiological identity of the ego, like that, the instinctual need for like food or the nipple or like, the need for safety and all these things. The identity of the physiology is the id. Then you've got the ego, which is more of the psychological aspects of the ego, of the id. And then you have the super ego, which is, essentially like the more collective consciousness, cultural norms, assumptions of what society thinks you should do and that type of stuff. So Freudian id, identity, ego stuff, I mean, it's cool, but honestly, I prescribe more to a Eckhart Tolle perspective, which is that of we have an ego, and your ego is who you think you are. It's your identity, and you're either conscious of it or you're either conscious or you're not conscious. And when you're not conscious, you're pulling up the program, you're running the program from the past, you're reliving, you're looping that old self, and you're in the ego. And then when you're conscious, when you become conscious of that, you break the cycle of that old program. You can actually dissolve the ego. The disillusionment of the ego comes when you transcend that. Oh my gosh. Transcend. Wow, transcend dance. Do the dance. Pure Vida, if y'all don't know, here in Costa Rica, we live by Pure Vida. It is pure life, baby, and we are just bringing that pure life into every moment through our awareness and through the ecstasy of being. And that's essentially what this video is about, is that you have the ability to choose in any moment whether or not you want to be in the unconscious pain and the trauma of the past, which I spent a lot of time doing it, Shaka, Cosmic Sunrise, and it's like we can either be there or we can just step fully into the blissness of this fucking moment, and the moment, right? You can like make love to life, and that is what this is all about, and that's what I want to get into right meow. So there was that moment when I did ayahuasca a couple summers ago. I was in Bali, Indo, and did the sacred plant medicine. Oh my god, these waves out here are just firing right now, you guys. I should be surfing, but instead I'm just channeling here. So I was drinking ayahuasca in Bali, and I made this commitment to myself, and I said, from this moment forward, I'm going to make the conscious decision to go from a state of healing to a state of thriving. And when I made that decision, something shifted in my biology. I got a biological upgrade, because when you set a new intention, like what's the word intention itself, right? It's like an inside tension. You're leaning into the edge of transformation. You're leaning into the edge of evolution, right? And evolving or changing can oftentimes feel uncomfortable, right? Because you have to like break free from the old self. You have to like let go of the unconscious addictions, and you have to let go of the old identity of who you think you were and the old stories. And like sometimes we get so neurologically addicted to those stories that it becomes who we are. It becomes part of our identity. And if you were to take that story away from me, well then who would I be, right? And this comes with the whole like midlife crisis. This is the death of the ego. This is the dark night of the soul. When you finally realize that old self, that dark night, that dark story has got to transmute. I've got to transmute it. I can't hold on to the story anymore. Is this resonating for you guys, by the way? Are you feeling me? Because like, holy shift, when I got this download, like, it was so important. Like, I feel like this is so important to really understand that the moment that we let go of that old story, we have access to infinite timelines. Now, this is where we start to move into more of like that quantum physics experience, where it's like, okay, neurologically you are entangled to a certain timeline, but the moment you break free from that, now you're tapping into the vertical timelines, which is fifth dimensional manifestation, right? You've got 3D, which is width, height, and depth, and you got a line of that, which is 4D, and then once you go from 4D into 5D, 4D is time, but 5D is like, there's vertical timelines that are infinite timelines, infinite different timelines, and in this moment, right meow, you are experiencing this moment from a different psychological or emotional standpoint. You're seeing this world, this moment, in 5D manifestation, you are seeing this present moment through new eyes. Through new eyes. I asked a Spanish girl last night, how do you say new eyes? Is nova, how do you say eyes in Spanish? New eyes. So when you perceive reality through new eyes, essentially what's happening is you're suddenly like realizing, wow, I could actually be experiencing this present moment right now in a total state of bliss and ecstasy. Ojos. Nova ojos. Thank you, Rochelle. Seeing the world through nova ojos. I'm so such a gringo at this point. But seriously, I don't mind being a gringo. Everywhere I go around the world, it's so funny. I've been traveling the world full-time for the last 4 years. The first time I traveled internationally was when I was 12 to compete in gymnastics in Japan. Like, ever since I've been traveling, I've always been a white male American, which, unless you're in America, it's the worst species to be on our planet. It's like we're the most hated. We've done the most worst stuff, and I'm just riding the wave of that lineage, which, if I were unconscious, if I were to prescribe to that collective unconscious identity, I could be a victim to that, or I could, be a whatever. It's like, no, like, I'm transcending the addiction to any collective conscious assumptions or anything like that. I am a sovereign being capable of experiencing this reality through infinite lenses of perspective, through infinite nova ojos, and to be able to perceive myself as, as a leader, as a creator, as a metaphysician, as a healer, like all of as a business person. I'm writing a letter right now. I'm writing a proposal right now to the IMF. Like the diversity of creation, of potential creation is so infinite that it's like waiting. The universe is just waiting for you to just come on in and create inside of it. Right? This is that sensual nature of creation. This is where the universe is really begging you to make love to it. And there's a book that's wanting me to write it. It's called Go Fuck Yourself. And it's like in essence, it's like go make love to yourself, right? It's like the other title is like Go Help Yourself, like a self-help book, right? But it's like in essence, it's that deeper narrative of like, make love to yourself and be able to nourish your mind, body, and soul, and be that cosmic orgasm that you are. Because I think sometimes we forget that you came from an orgasm. Your father, hopefully your mother at the same time, right? I'm sure that's how it happened, right? But just assume that. And just like really tune into the fact that like, because your parents fucked, because your parents made love, because your father had an epic orgasm, you came to life. Like, that's amazing. Like, holy shift. Like, ride that energy, right? Like, don't forget it. Like, geez, sometimes we get so addicted to the pain body, to the pain story. And this is the whole thing that Eckhart Tolle talks about, the pain body, which is essentially, I think, what Freud was talking about with the id being more of the physiological ego, the physiological ego, the neural pathways that are like the instincts but the pain body is more like the story and the identity of that. So we're just weaving here, but like basically the essence of the story is that from the moment you're born, there are these natural instincts that are born into you, and even when you're still in the womb, even that orgasm, that first orgasm, even the intention of your mother mother, how she was feeding herself at the time of conception, maybe the amount of stress that she was in while you are giving birth to a child. If you have a child inside of your womb, it's important to remind yourself that the amount of stress, if you have high stress, your autonomic nervous system, your ANS, is in fight or flight state. And if you're in fight or flight state, that is not a good state to be creating in. And this is where we start to tune our bodies like instruments. This is where it gets juicy, you guys, so stick with me here. If you're loving this or liking it, please give me some love. Please ask me any questions. If you have any questions or anything like that, share this video because we're about to tune it up right now. This is about to get juicy. So essentially what we want to do is we want to start to deepen our connection with our physiology, with that pain body, right? The pain body is the story of the body, like I got burnt when I was a kid, or I got touched inappropriately, or whatever it was, that story. We got to start to transmute those stories. And one of the ways that we can do that is just by deepening our connection with our body. Now, I want to introduce you or reintroduce you to one of my favorite nerves inside of my body, and it's actually called the vagus nerve. And what happens in Vegas stays in your vagus nerve, all right? So hear me out here. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve inside of the body, and it goes all the way here from the side of your temples, all the way down your neck, into your heart, and then down into your reproductive organs. And this is a very sensual nerve, just like all of your nerves are. So I just want you to tune into that. The nerve actually goes all the way from the sides of your heads here into your heart. And there's afferent nerves that are ascending and then descending nerves as well. And did you know that there are more nerves going up from your heart to the brain than there are going from the brain down to the heart? So the heart is actually sending more information throughout the entire body than the brain is. A lot of people are really heady. They try to manifest their reality. They're like, I'm trying so hard to manifest, but it's not working, right? And it's because we gotta feel it, right? This is the whole learning that we've been experiencing from Heart Math Institute, that it's like the heart, that feeling of the heart is what is attracting us or creating that electromagnetic field, that electromagnetic frequency that we're emitting. So once we go down to the heart, then we go down all the way to the reproductive organs. So if you want to make love, if you're intending on impregnating somebody, or if you're trying to be impregnated by somebody, it's really important to have a positive relationship with your vagus nerve, because your body is going to respond better. It's going to be like fertile soil in order for that seed to be planted, right? And don't you want your daughter, your future son or daughter, to really just like be planted in a body that is like in full coherence and in balance? Don't you want that to be a sacred temple? Now, we don't need to just be focusing here on, making babies, because that obviously is not our purpose in life. I mean, it is one of the purposes of humanity, and I'm pretty sure that's why God or the universe made lovemaking and baby production so pleasurable, except for the actual giving birth of a child, which seems like the least pleasurable experience of being human. Thank you, women. We honor and we adore you for all of the work that you do to embody new life and to literally give birth to every human on this planet. Oh my God, we should be empowering women into leadership more, but they are doing it themselves, and we are here to support you and to serve you and to honor you and to love and adore you. That is what we are here to do on behalf of the divine masculine. So, yes, life can be hard. Life can be challenging, and a lot of times what happens is when we get to a point in our life where sometimes we start to like numb out, unfortunately, right? Like a lot of times life can be too much. Relationships can be too much, and just life can be extreme. It can be overwhelming. And so a lot of times what happens, back to Freud talking about pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain, a lot of times what we happen is that in the pursuit of pleasure, we numb out. We numb out however we see fit, right? And a lot of times we're just pursuing these fleeting moments of that just like cosmic, orgasmic moment of bliss and just getting there and then holding on to it as long as we can. And sometimes it can deplete our energy. Right, men? It can deplete our energy if we're giving up too much of our energy, if we're putting ourselves out there too much, right? So sometimes we have to pull our energy back yin, and that was a big part of my year last year. I was like really pulling my energy yin, and what I realized, I'm recently reading a book called The Completion Process by Teal Swan. And what I'm learning about is that there's these fragmented aspects of ourself, meaning different parts of your identity that have been left in different parts of your timeline. So just imagine for a moment a cosmic imaginary timeline right here, and then you're in the middle, right? And then imagine like energy that is like connecting you to the past and to, even the micro moments of like what you're going to do tonight or what you're going to drink tonight or who you're going to whatever tonight, right? And so there's all of these things, these fragmented aspects of ourselves that are essentially leaking our life force energy into the illusion of the Maya. The Maya is time, right? It's the illusion of life. It's the illusion of the past and future. And so we're just leaking that energy out. And when we only have so much life force energy in every moment, if we're giving all that energy away, well, when it comes to manifesting the full embodied dream of your vision of the future, I mean, you might not have very much energy left. What that means is that you may have neurologically encoded yourself so deeply to an unconscious story that you are literally unable to break free from that timeline because you can't even see that another timeline exists. I gotta pause there because I want that to land. You could be so unconsciously addicted to a timeline, to an illusion of self, to an identity of who you think you are based on what happened in the past, that you think you already know what's going to happen in the future, even though there are literally infinite timelines that all begin in this moment right now. Do you feel me? And I just posted a testimonial from someone that came to my recent workshop last month in Hawaii. And she was just like, oh my God, she couldn't sleep. For the last 3 months, she was bedridden with depression. And when we talked about this fifth dimensional manifestation, she came to me the next day and she was like, oh my God, Jonathan, I slept so good last night. She's like, I have so much energy. Like, I'm just filled with energy. I just like realized that I don't have to be in the old story anymore. And she just completely disassociated herself with the old unconscious story, and boom, new timeline, new reality. And in that moment, she started to be filled with that vital life force energy. Yes, Rochelle, shift happens. That's what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm talking about, you guys. Like, the moment that we liberate ourselves, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds, right? The moment that we do that, do you realize that in this moment right now, you are literally being filled with pranayama, breathwork is pranayama, but prana is universal life force energy, pura vida, pranayama, aloha, the breath of life, right? It is filling and fueling and animating every cell inside of your body right now, every orgasm, every breath, Join me in doing one of those ecstasy breaths right now. Inhale. And it's interesting because a lot of people have a hard time doing that breath. I make everyone do it in the workshops, and it's so funny because so many people are like, and it's like a very uncomfortable feeling. It's actually very impossible for a lot of people to do that. And that's because we're so holding on to that tension. And by the way, that tension is neurologically encoded into us, and it is connected to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve that goes from the head down to the heart, all the way down to the reproductive organs, right? And so if we could just tune into that, like just raise your awareness to the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means like automatic, like basically your body's automated functions of your breathing, your circulation, your stress, your emotional chemicals, your neuropeptides, your genetic expression, the epigenetic phenomenon, which is that your genes are being expressed right now and have hundreds of thousands of potential sequences. Like, you have the genetic potential for ecstasy and bliss. In fact, it's loaded and encoded into you right now. The potential for ecstasy and bliss. But then the ego's like, well, wait a second. I need to feel this way in order to da-da-da-da-da. And that is totally a thought of the ego. And we know that because the ego is always in a state of like, oh, maybe when I get here, then I will feel ecstasy and bliss, right? But every morning when I wake up, when I do my meditation, and by the way, like, it's not easier for me to meditate than it is for you. Like, and there's no such thing as a bad meditation. Just sitting down, closing your eyes, and tuning your body like an instrument. And what I mean by that is to feel the emotional feelings that you want to feel. You're like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean feel the emotional feelings? How the fuck do you want to feel? Sorry for using bad language, but sometimes it hits deeper, apparently. How do you want to feel? Do you want to join me in the state of emotion, the emotional state of ecstasy and bliss? Now, the reason I like to choose those is because it's a contrast to what I used to feel. I used to feel depression. I used to have thoughts of suicide. I used to be very sad, childhood trauma, neurologically in pain. And because I numbed for so many years through smoking weed and drinking, because I was so unconsciously in pain, I had to break that cycle. You got to break the cycle. And that takes work. So there are a few tools that I would like to share. I'm going to share some of these, and then I also want to invite anybody who wants to actually go deeper into this with me to reach out, because I've built a system that I've been using to actually start to tune my energy to a point where, the prana tube and the actual central channel of light has gotten to a point with, even in my self-pleasure practice and in my love-making practice and in my practice of being and embodying the highest expression of myself, I have noticed quantum leaps. And it feels amazing. Jamie says, thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. So what I want to share here is that one intuitive insight that I had recently is this idea of this calling source, divine intelligence or divine love intelligence. There's this unique intelligence that is within you that is based on love, this orgasmic co-weaving, this two to tango, positive and negative duality coming into one, into you, right? From two came one. And then you came in and you were separated from source. That's painful. That's traumatic. And yeah, you could totally be neurologically addicted to that story of like, and I know people who have a lot of trauma around their childhood, around childbirth. And we could attach our ego and our identity to that story. Or we could elevate the story. And that's really what this comes down to, because once we get through the neurological encoding that we have to our unconscious story, once we break the cycle of karma, of reliving the past over and over again neurologically, once we break that, then we start to get into dharma, more into alignment, life purpose, allowing for that divine source of intelligence to fully express itself through you, as you, with you in every single moment, to the highest frequency possible. to allow for that level of creation to emerge. And the access point is literally this moment right now. And yes, there are some boundaries. There are going to be a lot of blockades, the mind, the ego, the identity that's going to say, no. Who do you think you are to think that you are the... insert the blank. How do you think you could ever be so powerful as to imagine that you were something special? Cosmic creation of the universe with little black holes inside of your eyeballs through which you perceive reality. Life is an orgasmic miracle. The more time that we can spend cultivating that state, that emotional state and the energetic state, because the emotional is that magnetism, the thought is that electrical, the electromagnetic field in which we are emitting. We are emitting an electromagnetic signature, a field, a frequency of energy that is going to bring to us our experience of life. And it's also going to project how we interact and engage with life in a moment-to-moment basis. And there's infinite potentials. There's infinite timelines. There's infinite ways to perceive and to experience and to interact with your experience of life. And there are those challenges. There are those unconscious patterns and programs that we have to break. And when we break that, then we can finally step more into that sense of celebration, ecstasy, bliss. We start reading different kinds of books, right? We move in the self-help section from I need to heal to more of like I am whole, right? We start to change the things that we're searching for online, the way that we speak, the rhetoric, the words, the vocabulary, the flocabulary, the way that you interact and the energy that you emit will shift. And then there's micro communication signals that you are always emitting. Those micro communication, subtle body language. You know how they say that body language is even more powerful than the words you speak? So those micro patterns, right? The way that you might sit, the tech neck, or like the way that you hold yourself can be perceived and felt by the people when you walk into the room. And just a small shift, you can see it, and you might have that shift, and all of a sudden someone's going to look at you and they're like, hey, did you lose weight? Did you get a haircut or something? You look different. And you're like, no. But I am a new version of myself right now. Renewed in every moment. Reborn in every moment. And when we step into that level of celebration of life, when we truly step into that feeling of bhakti. Bhakti is to celebrate God, to celebrate life. When we step into that level of creation, I believe that's when we fully transcend. That's when we elevate into the next level of living. And so, tuning your instrument. What are the edges? Where are the edges that you're feeling called to lean into and then break through? In what areas of your life are you numbing to avoid pain? And what if you were to lean into that edge? What if you were to start to just nudge into letting go a little bit and feel it? Allow yourself to feel it. And allow that feeling to be fully expressed. Allow that feeling to be fully emitted. No longer suppressing it, right? Because the more you suppress it, the more that you hold on to it. But the moment that you can let it go, you start to give yourself the ability to channel more energy. You become a vessel of consciousness. And I think that's what I titled this video, tuning your body like an instrument for a instrument of consciousness. Tuning your body as an instrument of consciousness. Healing your body fully so that you can embody more energy. I know a lot of people who are like, I don't like to work out. I don't like to work out because, it's all about looking good. No, it's all about tuning your body as an instrument so that God can create more through you. So get your ass off the couch. Put down the bag of potato chips. Go get yourself some, organic, non-GMO ass whooping. Free range, get in that field. You feel me? And it's not easy. It's not easy to cultivate. Like when I go and I work out and I'm doing push-ups until I'm in excruciating pain, screaming, it's not enjoyable for me. Even if I do more push-ups than you, which I probably will. No, I'm just kidding. But like if I did more push-ups than you, bottom line is that I'm going to scream when I get to that threshold. And as long as you're screaming, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you pushing until failure. Failure is our friend. Failure is the edge of the evolution of consciousness. Failure is the edge of our ability. That is us expanding our capacity to embody more energy, more frequently, more frequency, right? To elevate the awareness for all of humanity. Because the more that you can see, the more that you can speak to the people around you who are eager to feel, who are numb, the masses who are subconsciously attuned to their people around them. And you, infinite creator of consciousness, you sending frequencies of abundance and joy, you smiling and lifting people up when they're feeling down, having openly transparent conversations, being vulnerable with people, maybe apologizing for shit, like letting go of the fucking ego a little bit. Lean into that edge, friends. Cultivate that body as an instrument for consciousness to elevate awareness on our planet. This is our journey. This is our mission. That's just the first step, though, because once you do, that's when the downloads start to come through. And if you are interested in learning more about what those downloads might be, I encourage you to reach out to me and allow me to channel in some divine frequency for your future. As many of you know, I am a channel of the infinite. I am a channel of pure source energy. We can tap into the quantum field, we can tap into the Akashic records, we can tap into the future, and we can tune into what are those emerging trends that are happening in our planet, and how can we position you as a thought leader in your emerging trend so that you can elevate your mission on this planet as a thought leader, doing the work, as a luminary. You guys, look at this. Look at that sky. Wow. It's way more pink in person. I'm going to go run down to the beach and do a little workout. Thank y'all for joining me today. If you're interested in connecting, please reach out. Sending you all my love and aloha from here in Costa Rica. See you in the flow. Much love.